even then, you couldn't get the best of all the worlds because it was either or. So you did either Spanish or technical drawing. Which now looking back at how little I use Spanish, maybe I should have opted to do technical drawing instead. Welcome back to Learning as I Grow 365, a storytelling adventure. Today's story, I'm going to talk about the plan. I'm sure many of us are familiar with the expression, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. But my family and close friends is familiar with my expression that listen to me, no man. My life always takes the scenic route. Yet I'm obsessed with having a plan. Like many of you, I had a plan for my life. But the older you get, you realize you have a plan for your life. Everybody else have a plan for your life. Well, where I'm from, especially, your family has a plan for your life. And we're going to talk about the pathways to nothing going according to plan, but being exactly what I need. So I don't know, grandma, grandpa, if you're listening, maybe you'll disagree, but I'd like to think I was a pretty easy child to raise. Give me books and library, and I was good. I mean, really good. Like, so quiet you don't even hear me, but the plan for me was to be a good student who goes on to get a good job, make something of yourself. So the parameters were clear. Don't get pregnant before a certain age. And if you can swing it, be a good Christian church girl. Which the irony of that is that growing up, I never saw my grandmother go to church, but I couldn't miss a Sunday school. And as the family split into Sunday and Sabbath worshippers, then I found myself going to two churches on the weekend. So well churchified. But I mean, we don't have enough time to talk about all the plans that change, but I'll just talk about career trajectory and how from primary school you start to get primed to think about what kind of career you want in life, and you kind of knew there were some things that were desirable and some not so desirable. From as early as primary school, having a plan was serious business for me because the school that I went to, like a staple, year after year was always revising your plan for the future. So, like in grade three, you get the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? And by grade six, you're answering the question, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? And I was fortunate to have teachers who took you seriously. And now looking back, it's funny how I used to enjoy all the little short stories in children's own. Myself as a pen, myself as a pencil, myself as a ship. But when you're writing those compositions, I took it very seriously. And so I gave some serious thought to what I wanted to be when I grew up. So I had this clear path. I was going to be a pediatrician, and I'm going to have 4 kids. I guess the white picket fence dream, or whatever the Jamaican version of that is. And when I retired, I would volunteer as a teacher. So that was it from primary school until third form. Yeah, in third form, I had to make the decision about what general area I wanted to study. And so I did the arts because that, to my reasoning at the time, gave me a good balance of some science subjects, some art subjects. And then I loved languages. So there are certain subjects that just were not available to you if you were in the art stream. And then there were subjects available to you, but you had to choose. So, for example, I couldn't do technical drawing because I wanted to do Spanish, right? So, yeah, that was it. Like, fifth form was, as far as I was concerned, the end of my parents' obligation to me. And it's a weird thing that happens in my community that once you're not actively going to school, they treat you like an adult. Yeah, you got responsibilities, you got bills, you need to go find a work. So I remember in fifth form, so yeah, third form, we had to make that decision. So still wanted to be a pediatrician, but I figured go on, get job, whatever. So that's some ways down in the future. But in fifth form, a decision was to be made about whether or not you're going to apply for sixth form. It was clear to me that I'm not going to sixth form. So I was talking to my best friend, and she's like, "You really make me alone go to sixth form?" And I'm like, don't see how I'm making you, but yeah. She said, "No, man, apply for sixth form and we'll figure out the rest." So I applied for sixth form. Yeah, you remember that early in the story where I said there's this weird thing where once there's something associated with school, you revert to being a child. So when I told my parents that I decided to go to sixth form, I was instantly reverted in their minds to a child, and so they supported my going to sixth form. Went to sixth form and did a little too well for my own good, so my VP at the time encouraged me to apply to university. Yeah, I ended up in university because of peer pressure. Shout out to you, Aretha. And it's funny how sometimes, well, most of the time when we talk about peer pressure, we focus on the negative influences and how those affect children. But it was my friend pressuring me to say, "Listen, you need to come to sixth form with me." That made me apply for sixth form. Went to sixth form, and the plan was again, yeah, you kind of, what you call it now, you got away with it, but there's no way you can get away with applying for university. Fortunately, my friend wanted to be a teacher, and I had absolutely no interest in teachers' college at all. As a matter of fact, if I were to go according to the plan I had from primary school, I would become a pediatrician, work many years of my life, then have a family with 4 beautiful kids and the awesome husband. And when I retire and wanted to do nothing related to work, I would volunteer as a teacher in my community. So that was the plan. Yeah, so she wanted to go to teachers college. I had absolutely no interest in that. And my VP at the time came to me. I was like, "No, you really should apply to go to university." And my position was, "Listen, me sir, there's no way anybody's going to pay for me to go to university." But also being, I guess, you don't want to, it wasn't a thing about thinking about betting on myself. It was more like, yo, if VP say apply, you better apply. Whether or not you get to go, you deal with that when you get there. it's truly fascinating how, oh, the idea of a pediatrician, let's see. No. Um, Still love taking care of people and do it in my own way, but a pediatric life, I mean, I'm gonna want to take home all the babies. No, as I sort of become very critical of my over involvement in my own children's lives, because I think that was a factor. Like my grandparents, school, we support you as best as we can, but beyond that, they're not they're not gonna tell you, listen, did you do your homework, did you get an A, um, make sure you're thinking about college. So between primary school composition that actually made you feel like, listen, this is a serious thing to consider, and my girlfriend, I ended up at university, and I suppose the rest is still unfolding. So, what is the point of this story? The point of the story is, as parents, we need to be the support our children need, but we shouldn't be too involved. As long as we sort of put them in the spaces and facilitate the experiences that will encourage them in towards a trajectory that will be useful for them. Because no, no, we don't really want a criminal picnic. But I think being overly involved actually limits our children's capacity to really explore who they are, make some mistakes for themselves, mistakes that we don't want the parents to know about. Right. So that is one of the things to think about, that sometimes you have a plan. It's good to have a plan. It's good to have some kind of anchor, something that sort of spurs you on in terms of your action. But you have to leave room for the plan to change. So you're moving forward, but you're also adapting. And I suppose I'll share that it's a complete flip. My first job out of university was teaching. So after my first year after undergrad, I went back to my community. Well, I guess volunteer teaching. I volunteered at the primary school in my community, and then I set up my own, based on some of the things I saw when working at the primary school. I set up a community-based remedial project where we were working with youth and adults who needed remedial support around reading and basic mathematics. So that's the story of how having a plan and then being spontaneous based on the people around you and some of the encouragement that you get. But it's also a lesson in terms of parenting, where you sort of put your children in communities and spaces that are supportive, but also you as a parent surround them with an environment where the things that you value for your child are instilled in such a way that when various kinds of opportunities come towards them, they can discern that this is something that could be good for me, even if all this even if everything is not aligned, and also be willing to put in the work to make it work. So yeah, that's the story about how life has interesting curves and turns. And then the funny side to that is that I grew up in a household that's farming. Farming is what put food on the table. But when you do well in school, the no is farming. Like, you don't even consider it. And I think that's because of how our society failed to accurately reflect the value of farming and their contribution to the well-being of a society. Because I like to say that, listen, man, the greatest subsidy to people's well-being in Jamaica are farmers, because a lot of farmers, they don't treat it like a business, so they don't really assess the real cost of small scale farmers, they don't assess the real cost for producing the food that they produce. And so when they take it to market, what they're selling it for a market doesn't account, for example, for the cost of the labor, right? And so especially in like rural communities where farming is more of a norm, and then the surplus kind of gives us a little cash, farmers are subsidizing our tables. So shout out to all the farmers, and thank you for keeping us fed. But back to what's funny is that now that I've done all this academizing, you know what I want to be. When I grow up, let me write my composition. Hello, Miss Lennox. When I grow up, I want to be a farmer. Grandma, I hope you don't take this to heart, but yeah, it's true. I mean, my happy place is on a farm. My happy place is learning more about our food system and how I can help people have sustainable food. That's my happy place. So, Grandma, I will find a way to make the academics fit into my farming aspirations. But again, sometimes the plans have to change, and not just around the expectations people have of you, but sometimes it's just the space that you need to be in to fulfill a purpose. And right now, it is farming that is calling out to me. So, what's your story? Did you grow up to become the person that you always thought you were going to be? Like you always wanted to be a teacher, and now you have how many years in teaching? Or, like me, did your life take some twists and turns and the most scenic route? And maybe that's why I love farming, because the landscape in Jamaica is gorgeous. So taking the scenic route is not, it might be longer, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. You get to appreciate a lot more of what it takes to get to where where you want to go. And then sometimes that adventure, that journey becomes even more precious, more valuable to you than getting to the point of being a pediatrician or a teacher or whatever other goals you had. How did the relationships found on the scenic path actually help to enrich your life and change your perspective about what is important and what we truly should be aspiring for as we tread this earth?